Bion was analyzed by Melanie Klein between 1945 and 1943 and was part of the Kleinian group of analysts according to the ideological distribution into which the British society was divided at the time. Like other members of this group, Bion also embarked on an effort to study mental processes in psychotic patients. However, instead of prioritizing the action of instinctive forces and primitive defenses in their psychic manifestations, it is possible to identify in Bion's works a progressive focus on thought processes and their distortions. His focus was on understanding the process of thinking, thereby changing the approach to mental life by moving its focus from what we think to how we think. Bion formulated a theory of the origins of thought. He postulated a first form, which would be the basis for the development of later forms of thinking. This first form is the result of early emotional events between a caregiver and their baby that are decisive for the establishment or not of the baby's ability to think. In Bion's model, the infant has raw, unthinkable states of mind that are inseparable from bodily states. Bion named these the beta elements. The infant communicates these raw states of mind to the caregiver, for example, by crying. Next, in response to the infant, the caregiver takes the infant's state of mind into their own mental space and tries to imagine what might be happening. In this sense, the caregiver contains the baby's experience and organizes in her or his own mind what the experience might be about to give it some meaning. The caregiver then behaves back toward the infant in a manner appropriate to this meaning, thus making it something that can be thought about in the future. As an example, we could think of an infant waking up from a nap and starting to cry. The caregiver comes in, checks to see if the infant has a wet diaper, and then decides that the baby is most likely hungry. So the caregiver then tries to calm the baby while he's getting ready to start feeding him. The baby gradually calms down, settles into feeding, and after a bit pulls back and looks at the caregiver. If the baby could speak, he probably might say something like, "When I woke up, I thought something terrible was happening to me. But you didn't seem to think it was a big deal. I was just hungry." So that's what hunger feels like. Bion gave this transformed state of experience the name alpha element. He referred to the caregiver's tolerating contact with the baby's mental state as reverie. This whole process of the caregiver transforming an unthinkable raw beta element via the caregiver's thinking into a thinkable alpha element was given the name alpha process. So the baby requires a caregiver who is receptive and who can tolerate the stress of his or her fears, discomforts, and unknown situations. Through the ability for what Bion calls reverie, the caregiver pre-chooses the baby's unmetabolized emotional experiences, turning them into manageable, tolerable psychic events. Bion regards this process as a digestive model of the alpha function, in which the food system is used as a model for thought processes. Thus, through their reverie, the caregiver converts the uncooked emotional experience into mentally digestible pieces, called alpha elements, that the baby's psychic, not yet fully developed, can absorb without feeling overwhelmed by something still too big or too dense to swallow. This process probably takes place hundreds of times each day. Over time, the baby interjects the caregiver's alpha digestive function and the associated ability of reverie, which helps the infant slowly build up a mental apparatus with the capacity to think about experiences and give them meaning. First, Bion considered this process from a digestive model, in which the baby depends on the caregiver to effectively pre-chew the experience, so to perform the alpha function for him. But later, Bion added an intersubjective structure to this process when he introduced the notion of container and contained. This dyad, the container contained, can be seen as the first pair, caregiver and baby, or patient and analyst, who grow together through the ability to tolerate doubt until some meaning is attributed to unprocessed emotions, and this joint activity is interjected as the apparatus of thinking. To promote the development of the apparatus to think about the emotional experience lived and to do the psychological work, the container, the caregiver or analyst, must be capable of reverie. The reverie allows the container to be able to receive, to accept, and to metabolize, and then give back to the baby or patient the emotional experience that he cannot process alone. Bion's journey in his discovery of the alpha function has come a long way since its beginning as an investigation into how the psyche can learn to think and deal with unbearable emotional experiences, for its understanding that another mind is needed, and ultimately how this activity, the activity of these collaborative minds, is internalized as the apparatus of thinking.